Welcome to this program that is intense course on media literacy and students. And today is our sixth day. And for the last 5 days, we have covered various aspects of media literacy, and these sessions were taken by the resource person from Adamas University and Delhi Metropolitan Education. This whole course has been, in fact, designed and has been mooted by Adamas University and Delhi Metropolitan Education jointly. And this is perhaps the first of its kind course, wherein two institutions have joined hands for the sake of the society to serve a specific purpose in the society. And this whole course is in fact part of CSR activities. Now, what was the need of launching this course? I have been talking about this for the last 1 week so that there is a clarity on the part of the receivers, those who have joined in this session, as to what is exactly the objective of launching this course. Because since the time the internet has arrived, and particularly this social media has penetrated in everybody's life, so there is always a problem with regard to the message creation and dissemination. Because if we talk about the earlier media, the conventional media, there used to be only one side, that is the information creators, and receivers were merely the receivers. But now receivers have also become the information creator. So the problem is that one who does not understand the intricacies of all such kind of contents are created which are not actually in the interest of the society, wherein in the conventional media there used to be the whole concept of the gatekeeping. So not all the contents were being spread to the people. Now in such a scenario, and then not only the content creation is a problem, but the forwarding of the messages is also a problem. And WhatsApp is known for this, and in other platforms also, whether it's Facebook. Even on Facebook we share the content, the content with which we might not be agreeing with. We might not be understanding the real motive behind those posts, but still we do this. So this means to avoid this kind of situation, there is a need of developing more understanding on these kind of issues. So basically, there are two major components that become part of this media literacy program. One, that the students need to be told about different kind of medium, their functioning, the contents which are created, and all. That's the media awareness part. And then also to make this understand to the people that what all information is usable, what all information is to be disseminated or not to be disseminated, what all is to be rejected and condemned. So, and we should not fall prey to any such kind of information which is ultimately causing some harm, some damage to the society. So that's the basic objective, and we decided to do this firstly with respect to the school students, because it's easy to make the things explain understandable to the students, and if they understand today, then tomorrow it will be easy for those people to follow those rules which they would have learned as part of this course, and then they can further impart this to all their peers, so that once they are joining the higher education, they are already well trained into these areas. Now, to come to the decision to launch this course. So Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, who is the Pro Vice Chancellor in Adamas University and who is also the Dean in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion, he has been instrumental in coming out with this idea that such a course should be launched, and I join hands. I'm Ambarish Saxena, who is Dean in Delhi Metropolitan Education in DME Media School. So then the two institutions, as I told you, already joined hands, and then the other faculty members have formed of both the institutions a strong team. So we have the coordinators like Dr. Asha Singh, who is the associate professor in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion in Adamas University, and then Ms. Yashasrika Yadav, who is assistant professor in DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education. And the students who have joined hands, they belong primarily to two schools. One is a Mayur School, which is in Noida, and there is another school that is the Delhi World Public School, which is located in Noida Extension. And then few students also belong to different other schools, and also the our own students of the DME and Adamas University are there. And as far as the resource persons are concerned, they belong to both the institutions, Adamas University and Delhi Metropolitan Education. We have also roped in one industry person, Mr. Nimish Kapoor, who is a scientist in Vigyan Prasar and who has developed his expertise into fact checking. And that session, I must tell you, earlier we had not planned that session in this week only, but now we have scheduled that in this week. So let me tell you to everybody so that everybody makes it a point not to miss that session. This session, as I told you, will be on fact checking. This will be taken by Mr. Nimish Kapoor, who is a scientist in Vigyan Prasar, and it is scheduled on 22nd of October, Thursday, 22nd of October at the same time. So please note it down, all the participants who are there, that you must attend this session. And regarding today's session, today we have two senior scholars with us. That is Dr. Sunayan Bhattacharjee and Mr. Shubhrajit Datta. They belong to the School of Communication, Media and Fashion in Adamas University. In this session, we also have Dr. Asha Singh with us and Ms. Yashasrika Yadav with us. So without wasting much time, I hand it over to Dr. Asha Singh.
Thank you, Professor Saxena. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you to the day 6 of Media Literacy for Students workshop. And today, without wasting any more time, let me introduce you to Dr. Sunayan, Assistant Professor and HOD in Journalism. And he is as Professor Saxena has already told you, School of Media, Communication and Fashion at Adamas University. And we have Mr. Shubhrajit Datta, Associate Professor and HOD of Communication Management in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion, Adamas University. And they will be talking about what different kind of contents, media contents are created and what is their purpose, in what contexts they are created. So without any further delay, I hand it over to Dr. Sunayan Bhattacharjee from here. Okay, welcome Sunayan Bhattacharjee.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will talk about media content and media context. As we all know that there cannot be any content without context, so we'll try and understand the content, and at the same time we'll try and understand the context of the content as well. I'll try and keep my discourse as simple as possible, considering the fact that most of you must be beginning to understand what media as a subject is all about. As we all know, and I'm pretty sure that this has been emphasized over and over again, that media is all around us. And consequently, it is important that we understand, that we decipher, that we deconstruct the messages that come to us at different points in time in our life. Okay, so without taking any more time, let me just open the PowerPoint presentation and then we'll take it from there on. Okay. Right. So as we have discussed, that we will talk about the different types of content and contexts in media. Okay. Now, the first thing that we will discuss is something called fake news. I'm pretty sure that most of you have heard this term fake news. As disillusioning as it is, as misleading as it is, the fact remains, the reality remains that this is very much a part of the culture that we live in today. When I say part of culture, I don't necessarily mean a positive part of culture. I mean a negative part of culture. As it is, the point remains that it is important, it is essential that we understand what fake news is all about. I'm pretty sure that some of you must be knowing that this term was coined by none other than the American President Donald Trump himself. He had used this word. Different story altogether. He's the one who sort of gave credence to this term. So this term became popular only after he used this term during 2016 elections in US. So I'm going to take you two of the examples to start my discourse, and I think these examples are important considering that we live in the age of social media. So I'm pretty sure that everyone must have come across this message on their Facebook walls, probably on their WhatsApp feed, probably on their Instagram feeds as well, and probably sometimes on Twitter as well, that the India's national anthem has been voted as the best national anthem by UNESCO. This is one of the most common examples. The reason why I took this common example is to make you understand the extent to which this practice remains not just in this country but across the country, across the world as well. So you must have also come. So, for example, for all those people who are interested in politics, and I'm sure that some of you are indeed interested in politics. So you must have come across this particular, should I say, message that permeated through WhatsApp in 2019, just before the general elections were conducted. It said that according to a BBC survey, Narendra Modi has been voted as the most powerful prime minister in the world. What is our normal tendency? The moment we receive such messages on WhatsApp or on, for that matter, Facebook feed, we tend to forward them because we like them. There is a concept called confirmation bias. In other words, we tend to believe things, we tend to accept things that we have already an inclination for. In other words, let's say, for example, that if I like to believe that India is the best country in the world, there is a possibility that the moment information such as this is transmitted to me, I'll believe this. If I consider myself to be a pro-India person, if I consider myself that I take pride in my country, the moment in information such as this comes, that the Indian Prime Minister has been voted as the most popular Prime Minister in the world, we will tend to believe it. Okay. Having said that, having talked about the inclination part, having talked about the fact that we tend to believe all these things, the question still persists. Is there a credible source that backs up this information? Is there a credible source? And I'm pretty sure that you must have been told about sources. For example, whenever an information percolates down to you, when information comes to you, there must be a source of that information. Sometimes the source is credible and authentic. Sometimes the source isn't. Now, how do we determine whether a source is credible and authentic or not? That's the million-dollar question that we will try and address in our discourse today. Okay, so in both the cases, for both the examples that I just cited, for example, India's national anthem being voted as the best national anthem by UNESCO, and Narendra Modi being voted as the most popular prime minister in the world, on both the instances, the information is too good to be true. We'll try and discuss about what is too good to be true in the other part of our discussion as well. As I have already told you, the question now crops up: do we believe these pieces of information or do we not? The answer is a simple no. Okay, these are information that are designed, that are crafted in order to mislead us, in order to move us in a certain direction, a direction that would convenience a certain group or a certain individual. Okay, the important thing here, and mind you, I'm emphasizing on that word, the important thing here is to remain vigilant. I'm using the word, I'm pretty sure that most of you know exactly the meaning of this word vigilant. The important thing is to remain vigilant and take every information, whatever comes our way, with a pinch of salt. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean WhatsApp messages alone or your Facebook feeds alone. I am also talking about information that are given to you by MSM or the mainstream media, so to say. Even though that MSM is largely trusted by a large section of the society, you have to take that information also with a pinch of salt, and not just one pinch of salt, probably with a dollop of salt, in fact. Right. So, what is fake news? How do we define this word? You know, so the examples given in the earlier slide are generally identified as fake news, a term that has acquired quite a bit of traction in recent times. People will use this word as means meet everywhere. The moment you open a feed on Facebook, fake news. So, for example, I tend to believe that NDTV is a biased. Let's say, for example, if I believe that NDTV is a biased media platform, the moment NDTV will put up something on their, let's say, for example, on their Facebook feed or on their Twitter feed, I will come across with something like it's fake news. We don't trust, NDTV. Or, for example, if I consider Republic News to be a biased media platform, the moment Republic TV puts up something on their Facebook wall or on their Twitter feed, we will come across with this term like this is fake news, without actually knowing what fake news is all about. It is as simple as it sounds. It is important that we understand the meaning of this term. As I have already told you, Donald Trump, the president of the United States of America, claims to have invented this term. But does it mean that there was no fake news before 2016? Of course not. There was fake news all around. However, this courage that is fake news sort of gained traction only in the last 1 decade or so, ever since social media became the primary means of disseminating information. Today, the moment you get up in the morning, you hardly open the newspaper or you hardly open the news channel on your television sets. The first thing that you do is you take your mobile and you open your Facebook or your Instagram or your Twitter account. Possibilities more. So today, the social media has become the primary disseminator of news. Consequently, and one of the biggest disadvantages of social media, and something that I'm pretty sure that other teachers have already told you, is that social media does not have gatekeeping. In other words, there is no filtration mechanism involved in social media. So when information is probably consumed or produced on social media, it doesn't have a filtration mechanism. There is nobody to filter that bit of news and find out the authenticity and credibility of news. Consequently, the storage of fake news has sort of drastically increased over the past 1 decade or so. Fake news, though, is a term that is quite misleading. The reason is very simple. One of my teachers and currently my colleague, he often he comes up with this particular line that if it is a piece of news, it can't be fake. And if it is fake, it can't be news. So, in other words, fake news is an oxymoron or a seemingly contradictory collection of two words. It's contradictory. When you say fake news, it doesn't. So, what we essentially mean by fake news are disinformation, misinformation, and a third term called malinformation. Disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. We'll try and understand what these terms actually mean when we get into them. In our quest to be media literate, it is essential to debunk the word fake news, because fake news is not a very intelligent term, so to say. It is not an intelligent term and it does not say much about what it is all about. In fact, when we use the word fake news, we should be very clear about whether we are talking about disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation. We'll try and see what these terms actually mean. So let us try and understand this word individually. Remember, journalism, and when we are talking about misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, we are primarily talking about the larger domain of journalism. Journalism is a specific part of media. This is something that has been already told to you. And at the same time, when we talk about journalism, the terms that often crop up are misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. Unless the news consumers are aware and informed themselves, this menace cannot be sorted. Which means that as media consumers, as information consumers, as news consumers, you and I and all of us have to be vigilant. We have to know how and why fake news is distributed, what is the criteria based on which fake news is identified, and how do we debunk this entire phenomena, this rather disturbing phenomena that has cropped up over the past 10 years. Remember, today, our democracy, the Indian democracy, is in grave danger, subject to the, should I say, mushrooming of fake news all around. And I'm using that word intentionally. I'm using that word mushrooming with a definite intention in mind. Now let us understand what disinformation is. So, disinformation, according to the UNESCO book on fake news, disinformation is information. Now, when I say according to the UNESCO book, I generally mean the UNESCO book. I have not crafted this news. This is something that is available on the internet. You can check it out yourself. Whatever I say, whatever my request to all of you guys would be, that whatever I say, take my information also with a pinch of salt and try and find out whatever I am saying to you, whatever I am disseminating to you is true or not. Try and find out the authenticity and credibility. That probably can be your first exercise, finding out the authenticity and credibility of all the information that I am providing you. Okay. So, and today in 2020, you don't have to be a rocket scientist in order to establish the authenticity and credibility of news. All that you require is a little bit of common sense. That's all that is required. Anyway, so disinformation is information that is false, and the person who is disseminating it knows that it is false, which means that when I am disseminating a piece of disinformation, I am doing it with an intent. I am doing it with the objective of misleading people. Okay, I am doing it with the objective of misleading people. Okay, disinformation is information that is false, and the person who is disseminating it knows that it is false. During elections, during different public events, whenever there is an interest factor associated, there is, people try and spread information, disinformation, with the objective, with the purpose of strengthening their own biases, of strengthening their information, their positive information amongst their audience. So deliberate dissemination of false information with a purpose, the definite purpose or the definite intent is called disinformation. What is misinformation? Misinformation is information that is false, but the person who is disseminating it believes that it is true. Now, it can work on two different levels. Let me make you understand this. Now, let's say, for example, that I have created a piece of disinformation with the objective of misleading people. So I am spreading disinformation. Now I forward that through my WhatsApp platform to someone else. Okay, whoever that person is, I spread that to someone else. The moment I do that, that person, without establishing its credibility and without establishing its authenticity, forwards it to someone else. Now I am spreading disinformation, but the second person to whom I forwarded that message is spreading misinformation. Okay, so there is a difference between disinformation. So I probably have gotten this difference between disinformation and misinformation. I did it with a purpose, and the person who was spreading misinformation was doing it without a purpose. Okay, so disinformation is deliberate, misinformation is incidental, sometimes unintentional as well. And there is a third category, and this third category is equally important. The third category is called malinformation. What is malinformation? Malinformation is information that is based on reality, but used to inflict harm on a person, organization, or country. Malinformation is information that is based on reality, but used to inflict harm on a person, organization, or country. Now, let me explain that part to you. Let's say, for example, that we are talking about the Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi, whoever. Let's say that let's not take any name. Let's say that X or Y or Z is the Prime Minister of this country. Now, what is information to us and what is news to us? The news is that Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister, that Mr. X is the Prime Minister of the country, and Mr. X is doing this scheme and that scheme and that scheme. So that is important. That is of public interest. But the sexual orientation or the sexual inclination of Mr. X is not our problem. It's not our concern. It's not an information that we are soliciting or that we are seeking. Now, if I try and distribute that information as well, that is malinformation. It is done with the objective of harming an organization or a person or a country. Someone's sexual orientation, someone's personal life is not for public grabs. This is not a piece of information that is in public interest, that is justifiable by the establishment of public interest. So this is malinformation. It is based on reality, but it doesn't have any relevance in the overall context of things. I am doing it for the purpose of hurting or harming a person or an organization or a country. This is called a malinformation. So in terms of the dangerousness of the proposition, malinformation is the most dangerous, which is based in reality. This is not false, by the way. This is not false. This is based in reality, but in information that is not required at that point in time. Second is disinformation, which is done with the intent of misleading someone. And third is misinformation, wherein I'm spreading an information unintentionally but false information. So disinformation and misinformation are necessarily false information, but malinformation is true but not solicited. I hope you have understood the difference between the terms. Please, whenever, if and at all, if you have any doubts, I'm pretty sure you will have lots of doubts. Please ask me this question. I'll try and clarify this again to you. Right. So, if you have to represent it with a diagram, this probably is the best representation of that diagram. The disinformation is done with the intent to harm, and at the same time, it is false as well. Misinformation is only false, false connection, misleading content. It is not done with the intent of harming someone. Malinformation is information that is not relevant, but it is distributed or it is disseminated with the intent to harm a person or an organization or a country. The primary purpose of both disinformation and malinformation are causing hurt, harm, and misleading people. Just a minute. Okay, right. So this can be this probably is the best diagram to exemplify the difference between misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Right. So let us take a couple of examples to understand the difference between disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. Right. Just a minute. Hold on for a second, please. Right. So the COVID-19 pandemic, and all of us are pretty aware of that. We don't have any other option but to be aware of it. The COVID-19 pandemic has given rise to multiple disinformation and misinformation campaigns. And I'm using those word campaigns because they are deliberately, as I've already told you, disinformation is deliberately designed. It is crafted. It is constructed. Okay, there is someone sitting behind the computers creating this sort of information, and it is being designed in a very clear and concise and purposeful way, so that people are misenchanted, as I've already told you. Okay, so the belief, and just a few months back, probably in the month of April or May, there was this information that was spreading all along that arsenicum album 30C or AA30C, which is a homeopathic drug, is the cure for COVID-19. Unfortunately, this false information, which was debunked by scientists later on, that COVID-19 doesn't have a cure till now, was spread by the government itself, by the Ministry of Ayush, and by the government itself, by the government of India itself. So I don't know whether this was a part of disinformation or misinformation, because it might have been intentional, it might have been casual or unintentional as well. If it was casual or unintentional, it was a grand mistake, grand blunder on the part of the government. And if it was intentional, I don't know what to say. Okay, the belief that this arsenicum album 30C is a great example of both disinformation and misinformation. Okay, so there's this term called infodemic. I'm pretty sure that some of you have come across this term. This is a term that is being widely used these days after pandemic hit the streets, after pandemic hit this country. So there have been a lot of misinformation and disinformation about this disease. At multiple points in time, scientists and doctors and common man and public experts and policy experts and decision makers and political leaders, they have been spreading a lot of rumors. Rumors that have no scientific basis. Rumors that are not based in reality. Okay, this has given rise to something known as the infodemic, which, if not more dangerous than the pandemic, is equally dangerous as the pandemic. Okay, infodemic is probably the most apt term that could have been discovered for this entire phenomenon. Let us take an example of a misinformation. So, this example was given by the UNESCO book itself, and that is why I thought that it is important to let you know that there was this terror attack on the Champs-Elysees in Paris on 20th April 2017. And individuals on social media, without their knowledge, without being overtly aware of what happened, they were publishing rumors, including the news that there was a policeman who was killed, that there was a second policeman who had been killed, for example. I have already taken the example of malinformation. An example of malinformation is a report that reveals a person's sexual orientation without public interest justification. Okay, so I think let me divide. Let me explain this point a little bit. So, for example, if a personal information is of public consumption, pertains to public consumption, mind you, I'm again using that word. If a private information pertains to public interest, that should be reported. But if a personal information has got nothing to do with public interest, that should not be the concern of newsmen. That should not be the concern of journalists. That's all that I'm saying. That the moment you are publishing a personal information for the heck of harming a country or a person or an individual, you are spreading malinformation. So I'm pretty sure that you have come across this term called malware in computers. Similarly, malinformation is done with the objective of harming a person or a country or a community. I hope I have exemplified that point. Please come up with your questions later on. So use reason. I always say this, use your common sense. You don't necessarily have to be a rocket scientist to understand that there are certain thumb rules to be followed in order to differentiate between real news and fake information, not fake news. I'm not using the word fake news, between fake information and real information. Information that pertains to your interest, information that you should know, and information that you are not supposed to know under any circumstances. Okay, so there are certain rule of thumbs, and let us try and understand this rule of thumbs so that we ourselves can debunk fake news. It's not a very difficult thing to do. You don't necessarily have to be a professional to do that. You don't necessarily have to be a fake news debunker to do that. You can be a school student and you can do that yourself. You can teach your compatriots, you can teach your classmates as to how do we do that. And again, these are procedures that are not difficult to follow. These are very easy procedures, something that every one of us can do. You know, the reason why fake news or other disinformation or misinformation is spread is because people are numb about it. People do not care. The moment you get a Facebook forward or a WhatsApp forward, we are in the mindset to forward it again without actually knowing that this piece of information is fake or this piece of information has been constructed or crafted with a definite purpose. Okay, the fact that we are nonchalant, the fact that we are not bothered about it, the fact that we tend to forward news without authenticating, without credibilizing, is the reason why these things happen. So, as individuals, as prosumers, today you are not just the consumer of media products, you are the producer of media products as well. While you are consuming news on WhatsApp, while you are consuming news on Facebook, while you are consuming news on your mainstream media platforms, you are also producing news. Tomorrow, you can come back and post something on your Facebook wall or your Twitter feed or on your Instagram account. So you become a producer as well. That's why this is the age of prosumerism, or all of us are producers. We are consumers and producers at the same time. Okay. So consequently, in this current time, it is important, it is essential, it is the sine qua non that all of us understand how to debunk fake news. Sometimes it might be too technical. Then you leave it to the professionals for them to decipher whether it's a piece of fake news or not. But there are certain things that all of us can do. First, point number one, always look for a credible and authentic source for any information. The moment you get in information, ask that obvious question: where did you get that news? Or where did you get that information? Did you get it from a credible source? Did you get it from an authentic source? Okay. And when I say authentic or credible, I necessarily mean organizations or sources that are publicly accepted by countries, accepted by organizations, and largely respected by people. Today, BBC might also peddle a fake piece of news, no doubt about it. Tomorrow, the Indian Express might also peddle a fake piece of news. There is a possibility. But the point remains, the reality remains that the possibility of an Indian Express or a BBC disseminating a fake piece of news is very less. So if, let's say, for example, BBC or an Indian Express or a Hindu, or for that matter, Where or a Print disseminates a piece of information, sometimes we might have to take them on our face value. Okay, that is layer one of trying to find out whether a piece of news is fake or not. Layer two, I'll give you an example to illustrate that point. So last year, I think in 2019, just before the general elections, there was this WhatsApp forward that was doing the rounds. The WhatsApp forward was to the effect that BJP, right now the party which is ruling the country, will win an X number of seats. Okay, and down there was a link of BBC given, as if that survey was done by BBC itself. Whereas the fact remains that what they had done, they had intentionally and they had very intelligently juxtaposed the main link of BBC without juxtaposing the link of the news itself. So when you click on that link, you go to the BBC website and not on that particular news. So very few people have this habit of clicking on the news portal or the news item that is given down below in the WhatsApp forwards. If you would have clicked on that news, you would have realized that that piece of information was also a fake news because that was not peddled by BBC. Instead, what they had done is they had inserted the link of BBC instead of inserting the link of the news piece. That's how it is done. Okay. Layer two, that is layer one. Layer two, do not just forward WhatsApp messages without doing a health check. What do I mean when I say health check? I mean going through all these standards and finding out that if you yourself can find out if it's a fake piece of fake news or not. Chances are that in 90% of the cases, you yourself will be able to find out if it is a piece of fake news or not. 90% of the cases. Only in 10% of the cases would you require professional help. I'll come to that as well. Do a basic Google search before taking any information on face value. Please do not take any information on face value. My brother is an astronaut. He has given me an information on COVID-19. Does not necessarily mean that it is true. Does not necessarily mean that it is true. He might be an astronaut, but he might not be an expert on pandemic. He might not be an expert on COVID-19. So even if he is giving me an information, I necessarily have to do the basic Google search and find out if it is true, authentic, and credible or not. Layer 4, if something seems too good to be true, it is usually too good to be true. What do I mean by that? I mean that if something seems too idealistic, too good, too, should I say, it is taking you to a different world altogether. Chances are, 99 out of the 100 cases, it will be false. Vande Mataram has been voted as the best national anthem in the world. Cannot be true. Narendra Modi voted as the best prime minister of the country, of the world. Cannot be true. A certain language has been voted as the most, Asha, I'm holding it to you in 2 minutes. Yeah. These are information that are too good to be true and you cannot be sure about them. Next, try to find out the hidden motive and do this, especially when you are trying to ascertain the veracity of any political information. Please do that. And finally, use fake news busting websites such as Alt News, Fact Checker, Boom, Wavecoof, and the likes. If you have any questions, please direct them to me later on. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. And over to you, Asha.
Thank you, Dr. Sunayan. I hope students have they will have many more questions once Professor Shubhrajit is done speaking. So now I hand it over to Shubhrajit. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Asha. So I just do my screen sharing. 1 second. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon or good evening almost. Good evening, guys. Anyone would like to see for my half an hour, for my portion, I would like to be interactive. So anyone would like to say something of what Dr. Bhattacharya talked about, news, about fake news, anything that comes in your mind, because I am also going to talk about something fake. And if you see this entire thing, there is actually a kind of a thread which goes through this entire, all the subjects today. And that is that whatever we are talking about, there is some kind of a dishonesty here. Whether it's a fake news, whether it's a propaganda, whether it's a misinformation, correct. So guys, anyone, anything that comes in your mind when what you have listened to, when you have listened to the news before we get into propaganda? Anyone would like to say something?
Actually, they'll be writing their queries in the chat box, and
Okay,
which we
okay,
will take up later. Yeah.
okay. So let's start with propaganda then. So propaganda and clickbait. Of course, the first part will be propaganda, and the next part would be clickbait. Propaganda, as we know that whenever we would like to, very, very basic definition, what we need to see, all the definitions and the complex definitions are there, which are like thousands in numbers or millions in numbers. But what we need to understand is, as media students or the media literacy students, that how does propaganda impact us on a day-to-day basis, where we are, whether, so that, for example, if we know propaganda, it's not only important to memorize the definitions of propaganda, but how to counter propaganda. So, but before going there, let's understand what propaganda is. So propaganda is manipulate other people's belief, attitude, or action. See, let's go a little, what I should say, let's start from the beginning. When we talk about communication, communication has a role, and the communication's role is, see, if you go to that early, that those charts, like the basic communication transmission kind of a chart, or how does communication work, there is a sender and there is a receiver, and the sender talks to the receiver, receiver gives a feedback, comes back to the sender, sender becomes receiver every time, and receiver becomes sender, and that's how the communication works. Very, very simple. Now, if you look at that, there is some kind of an symmetry there. One person says, another person responds, another person, and that feedback comes in, then you give your response, and that's how the cycle moves. And there, if you see, there is a kind of a symmetric. Propaganda is exactly opposite. That means asymmetric. I would like you to do something, but I will not show you my cards. I will not give you the entire information. I will show you only one part of it. And I would like you to do what I ask you to do, rather than having a kind of an honest conversation about giving you options and you decide what you want to do. No, that's not propaganda is. Propaganda is always making one side more prominent. So whenever this term comes, manipulation, manipulation means some kind of an adjustment, some kind of an asymmetric adjustment, so that you do what I want you to do, or you believe what I would like you to believe. Now, there is a little bit deeper, maybe we do not have that much of time here, but if you see, this propagandists or the propaganda artists, they are very smart. They normally try to understand that what you wish to believe in. So if you wish to believe in, and now because of social media, it has actually become very easy. Because if you go there and if you are trying, if you go to the any search engine, whether it's a Google or a Bing or anywhere, you go and you start typing saying colonization of Mars. So I know that now you are interested in colonization of Mars. When in my country, think about it, there are 20 lakh people in my country. It's a small country. Now, if I know that 60% of the people are interested in colonization of Mars, they want to go to Mars from Earth, then of course a political party will come and give you all kind of a solution and all kind of a favorable information that is conducive for you to settle in Mars. And there can be other different things, rights about staying in Mars and all of these. And but without telling you that what is the opposite side, what's there, what is wrong if you go there, what can be the potential dangers there. So a propaganda is normally pushing you to one end without showing you the other side. That's the point. Now, Propaganda can be anything. It can be symbol, it can be words. If I am talking to you, it can be words. If I'm showing you something, it can be an insignia. So I will have something, say for example, two birds sitting here, and those two birds is my national pride. And then my national pride is when I attack other countries and I invade them and conquer over them. That's, well, my national pride gets manifested. So that's why those two birds. These are all hypothetical examples just for you to understand. It can be a words, it can be a gesture. Gesture, remember Heil Hitler, that gesture. Okay, so any kind of a gesture that can, which is associated for to do this manipulation, will be all a part of propaganda practices. So as we say that the distinguishing factor here, propaganda is also communication. Propaganda is also kind of an influencing you. Propaganda is also persuading you, but persuading, influencing you with an intent to manipulate. And that is where is the difference between an honest conversation and propaganda. So as we already discussed, that asymmetric means what? I already, before the discussion, think about it, in communication practices, the purpose is both the person talk. Okay, think about it, both the person talk, and we will come to some kind of an mutually agreed goal. I give you an example. I want to have Momo, you want to go for a movie. Both of us sit together and both of us talk to each other. And then we may decide that no, Momo is also not feasible and movie is also not feasible. So let's go for a dosa shop, which is nearby. Okay, so the Momo option has been gone, the movie option has been gone, and we have taken up the dosa shop, which was a third option, which was not there at all. But we too have discussed and thought that it may be a good option. Why not? This is a kind of an honest, this is a kind of an ideal, honest communication where we are both talking to each other and doing kind of a symmetry. There is a symmetry, a symmetric element there. Asymmetry is, I know I have already an objective in my mind. And what is the objective? Objective is I want to take you to a movie at PVR in a place in Delhi. Okay, that I have already decided. Now, whatever you say, I am not going to give you the option of dosa or any other movie hall, because it's been decided. I have already decided that I will take you to that movie hall only for whatever purpose is that there. Maybe I have my dad's restaurant at the top floor and I would like to treat you at the restaurant. I don't know. But the goal is already in my mind. And I am now trying to manipulate you in such a way while talking to you. I will now give all the examples of why that restaurant in South Delhi is like, or that movie hall in South Delhi is so good, and the sofas are so soft, and then you have those huge, nice leg space, and the Coke comes free. And if I know something, say for example, you're an art lover, so what I will say, there is an art exhibition which is next to the movie hall. So if you go there, then I can also introduce you to an artist there. Think about it. These are all my different kind of an enticement, because my goal I have already decided that I will take you to that movie hall, that particular movie hall, and nowhere else. That's why it asymmetric. So anyone guys have any question on symmetry and asymmetry, we can discuss, as Asha madam just told me that it's like you are putting it on chat box, so we can always discuss it later if you want to ask. Okay, so now some facts I will choose and some facts I will not choose. Why I will be very selective about choosing facts and choosing symbols? Because I already know what is my goal. So whichever facts and insignias and displays will help my cause, I will push you towards that. I will not make you the entire bouquet will not be available to you. It will only, you will have a selective visibility. Okay, let's go ahead. So difference between education and propaganda. See, true education, education in the true sense that we say, education gives you all the sides. Now you pick and choose. One issue, say for example, I have 50 acres of land. So I would like to now have those land cleared and give it to an industry. Now, whether it's good, whether it's not so good, if it is good, how it is good, how I'm making money out of it, and what will happen to those trees which are like there on my 50 acres land, and what is the harm if I do that, what is the positives if I do that. So all different kind of perspectives we take into account, and then we take an informed call, and that is exactly the role of education. And here, that is how education is different than propaganda artists who deliberately manufacture public opinions and attitudes. Here, again, I am not giving you all the bouquet, all the options to choose from. I want you to choose what I have chosen for you. So all facts have been shortlisted to make that, to reach that end. Okay, let's go to the next one. I give you an example. Immigration leads to rise in crime. We know various statesmen across the world is actually fighting their election, had fought their election on this kind of an on this kind of a premise that wherever there is an immigration, there is a rise in crime, because one particular attribution is that immigrants are criminals. Why? Because whenever immigrants come, not everyone, of course, a part of it, because immigrants, there's a logic as well. The logic is that when immigrants come in, they do not have much options. They do not have much options of livelihood. So they may take up something which is not so good professions. They may get into kind of an criminality. There can be prostitution, like if prostitution is illegal there. So there will be different kind of activities which is not helping the society. That's been done by the immigrants. That's kind of a notion. But if you see the fact, so here the fact is in front of you on my screen. I have taken it from Wiki that, sorry, I'm sorry. A meta-analysis of 51 studies from 1994 to 2014 on the relationship between immigration and crime in the United States found that the overall immigration reduces crime, but the relationship is very weak. So it's like reduces crime, that's not established. Increasing in crime, there is no evidence. So think about it. But if someone says, but people actually think that immigration steals job, that is not also factually correct. On the contrary, what happens is, think about how economies work. If you have more opportunity, then more people, if you have more people actually, then more businesses want to set up their ventures there. The more ventures there are, the more people they need. So actually, it's kind of a cyclical. Because immigrants were there, because the number of people were there, more businesses actually opened to cater to them. Because they catered to them, the business size increased. Because the business size increased, people, the number of people, the requirement of people increased. So this is all cyclical. So if I say, if tomorrow immigrants go, what is the logic here? That if tomorrow immigrants leave, we will get back all the jobs. It will not happen. The market will also disappear. Think about it. If the people disappear, the demand disappears. If the demand disappears, of course, the market disappears. If the market disappears, the job disappears. As simple as that. Or your cost will be so high, your labor cost will be so high that this entire premise will be completely unviable. Okay, let's go to the next one. So there is another kind of, these are different kind of propaganda techniques. Of course, within this short time, I will not get into much detail, but just to give you an example, get on the bandwagon, very kind of a strategy, a popular strategy. Hey, everyone is doing, why you are not doing? Everyone is doing this thing. If you are not doing, then it's not something, you are not included, you are not a part of it. That's also kind of a different propaganda techniques. Again, think about it. My objective is to make you do what I want to do, what I want you to do. And that is why all of these. Another example, there can be a promise of an altered state, that whatever it is, if you promote if you promote my ideology, you could go to a different state altogether. A different state means a different situation. or it can be name calling, that this person is a witch, this person is a whichever, is characterless, and all of these. Again, all of these, why? Because if you are, this is kind of an, I'm influencing you in such a way that you don't go there and you come back. Of course, if there is like a two party, or if there is a two contestant, that if that person's possibility is negated, you will come back to me. And there can be slogans, or appeal to tradition is also very important, that okay, so this is the country and this is the kind of a tradition that we are talking about. So that can be a propaganda weapon, propaganda tool as well. So this is one person I must mention, Goebbels, Paul Joseph Goebbels. Guys, please read up on him. He is a great propaganda artist. He met a very sad end, but of course he did everything. What he did, it's like kind of the humongous books that's available on them. So anyone who is interested on propaganda, go read up. So this person is, he took over the broadcasting facility. So whichever countries Germany used to conquer, he used to go and take over those channels. And then he used to, like, those anchors were there. And at the same point of time, think about it, social media was not there. This freedom of, this freedom of media, whichever, however way it has been tampered with, still social media, we have a lot of freedom. That's why we are talking. So now, this guy used to take all the prepared material that he had, but he had the same anchors. Think about it, Rajiv Sardesai or someone who is like talking to you. Tomorrow I give him all the propaganda materials, and then I force him to talk to you, and he talks to you. You will believe, because the believability factor is much more, because the face is same. So this guy has actually done many things which has been taken a leaf of the great propaganda techniques and have done this. Again, as I said, that he made a very kind of a sad end. This is, think about it, this is, we are talking about in April, 1945, almost the war has ended, and this guy said, no, we will not move out, even when Hitler was also not keen. So he's saying to these things to the residents of Berlin. I call on you to fight for your city, fight with everything you have got for the sake of your wives and for your children, your mothers and your parents. Your arms are defending everything we have ever held dear, all the generations that will come after us. And then it continues. And then he knew already that Germany has lost the war. When he's saying this, he knew that any point of time, Allied forces will jump in. And you see, this thing is happening in 23rd April, and on 30th April, Hitler committed suicide. He shot himself. That's what the history book says. We do not know, actually. It's like debatable. There are so many conspiracy theories. But then Adolf Hitler, he died. He committed suicide. And the next day, if I'm correct, Goebbels also committed suicide. They poisoned they have like 6 children or something. They poisoned everyone. So of course we are not getting into Goebbels here, because that's not the topic, but that he was, of course, we had to say about Goebbels, because we are talking about propaganda here. Now if you may ask me a question that, okay, so how do we come out of this kind of a propaganda cycle? Because people will always want to influence you for their own purpose, own objective. That's something like critical thinking. I will show you a small video here. You can see that what's critical thinking is. Remember, guys, critical thinking is asking questions all the time, asking intelligent, right questions all the time. I show you from here. Can you see my Ashaji? Is my screen visible on as I'm showing the video?
Screen is visible.
Okay.
The right questions.
No, we can't see your video.
But video,
So
yeah.
I think you will have to go back to your screen sharing and share the video window once again.
Okay, one second. So I go here.
Now I'll just stop your screen sharing, and you need to go back to your screen sharing and share the video window again.
Okay, one second.
Yes, YouTube is visible. If you could please put it to full screen.
Critical thinking is all about asking questions. The right questions. Questions that help you assess both the meaning and the significance of claims and arguments. Building these skills and applying them in your life makes it easier for you to assess evidence, evaluate arguments, and adapt your thinking so you stay switched on and engaged in different situations. Critical thinking involves stepping back from a situation to enable you to see all the angles before making judgments or taking decisions. It means identifying the key points, analyzing the sources of information, weighing up different types of evidence, just as a judge and jury would do in a court of law, and putting it all together into your own independent, thought-through point of view. One thing that it's very important to realize is that critical thinking isn't about being critical. And it's about much more than just finding flaws in other people's claims. By itself, that isn't enough to give you an edge. To be a true critical thinker means being creative, reflective, and adaptable, evaluating the evidence to decide for yourself what is accurate, what is relevant, and do I have sufficient information to take a decision on this topic? Thinking critically means taking a stand for yourself. It can be difficult not to be swayed by close family or friends' views on things, or certain beliefs that just feel right. But learning how to use these higher order thinking skills can help you to feel much more confident in your own opinions and conclusions. Critical thinking is also about a sense of discovery and excitement, not only about learning, but evaluating arguments to see how they stand up, and filtering for yourself what resonates as right or wrong. By using these techniques, you'll find yourself becoming a clearer, better thinker. Macat.
Okay, so I think you need to disable my screen sharing again so that I can share the PPT. Okay, so I share screen. Yes, is my PPT visible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, so guys, here is the end of the propaganda bit. So we have discussed about what is the propaganda. We say that how people can, of course, what are the different kind of an appeal people normally use to con you, rather, I would say, to make you believe in what they want you to do. And then what is a kind of a vaccine against it? What is a kind of an anecdote? What is a kind of an, yeah. So as I said, the vaccine name is like very popular right now. So that's what I said. What is a kind of an effective deterrent against being pushed, being persuaded by intentions which are not, which may be pushing you to some direction which you may not wish to go. So yes, that's critical thinking about. Now we will be quickly talking about the next bit, which is clickbait. Again, clickbait, we are talking about something where there is a dishonesty. That is why if you see click, it's perfectly okay. But think about the second part, bait. Bait means what? I would like you to get attracted to something. As we all know, what is the role of the bait? To catch you. Whenever we put a bait to a fish, what's the objective? It's not to feed the fish, but the fish will come, of course, by its hunger or by its greed, it will come, and then we will catch the fish. So it's the same thing. Now, clickbait is very, very interesting if you have to understand modern day propaganda, if you have to understand modern day false news, or if you have to understand modern day advertising. That's also clickbait is a very interesting part. It's a false advertisement, hyperlink text or thumbnail link. I first show you how a clickbait looks like so that you can understand what is it. See, here is a pic and it says, find out if your home in Orlando area is increasing in value. Learn what you could sell for today. And then there is a link. What is your home worth? Now everyone wants to know what is their home worth. So you will click here and then you will go to a website, and then you will see that there are many other information, much other, like many other things, advertisements. Not necessarily there will be a virus. There can be, there cannot be. But think about it, many of the time, it is actually taking you to websites with one objective. And the objective is there are so many other ads, there are so many other things that you click there. It's not for content. Think about it. A Hindu or a New York, Wall Street Journal or a New York Times or Times of India want people to be on their website to read the content because there is a lot of content there. Clickbait actually gives you a headline: crocodile devours an entire individual in 3 seconds. Watch video. And then you watch video, there you go, and then there is some information about crocodile, but there are many other information. It's kind of a jungle of information. You go there. Again, the objective is why I have put the bait, so that you see the headline, and the headline is very catchy. Clickbait advertisements, the headline is very catchy, and you find it very attractive, the headline, and then you get into it, but without getting anything gainful. And then you come out. Think about it. If I can catch 1 lakh people every day by only putting one catchy headline and a JPEG, like an image or a small video, it can be, I can show to the advertisers that look at my footfall at my page, and then I can monetize it. I can monetize it in so many manner. But is it good for you? May not be, because you are not getting the information that you're looking for. And here is that con element. Here is the bait element that's there, because you are not getting what I promised you. Wherever people promise you something and give something else, what we call that, those people cheat. Here also, promises been made something else, headline talks of something else, your content is going something which can be a minor variance or a major variance. That needs to be seen, but it's different. Okay, so bait to attract reader, not for viewing content, but for advertisements and offers. Deceptive, mostly sensationalized. As I have given example, crocodiles devours a human being in 3 seconds. Very catchy one. And I say watch video, and I can actually, and I show you an image there, which is like a thumbnail that a crocodile is actually chewing on a human being. You say, oh wow, what is it? And then you click there is nothing, maybe some information about crocodiles, and that's about it. Or whenever crocodiles have attacked human being, it's kind of a blog on that. Maybe that's not that you have gone there. The end objective, reader to click on these links. As we say, polarizing headlines attract more eyeballs. Polarizing means on one side, headlines which really stand out. Earth will be in 2000, Earth will end. This planet will end, will meet its nemesis in 2040, says virologists. Everyone is very keen because virology is now at the top of our mind because of COVID and stuff. Okay, so in 2040, another 3 outbreaks will happen. Okay, let's see what is there. And you go there is some kind of a speculative report, and that's about it. But there is a lot of advertising links. Okay, so why people actually do that? Because of course we have this curiosity factor. There is some information which is missing. And another thing is instant gratification. Instant gratification is what? Oh, wow, this information I will know, others will not. And then I can use this information in so many different things. It's also, there is an information gap. I have not heard this earlier. Let's see and figure out what is there. And that's exactly the kind of a human psychology that that the clickbaiters or people who are like masters in clickbaiting, they actually use that. So as we said, clickbait's headlines are essentially dishonest, entices without delivering, and that's where the dishonesty. As I said, not necessarily every clickbait site you will go and some virus will come and with some Trojan will come and will take your control of your computer. May not be. But the thing is that it actually, the main thing is it entices you without delivering. It doesn't deliver. So another thing is over promises and under delivers. These articles associated with headlines often are not original. So different things and content can be copied from other websites, just put in there, copy pasting. But here my question is, can clickbait be good? Think about it. In advertisement, I will take the next 2 minutes. In advertisement, the thing that we look at always is to attract people, so that people get attracted. We have like thousands and millions of ad every point of time there in the over the internet, and then we hardly are interested. But this clickbait people are very successful to actually take the horse to the pond for drinking water. Think about it. You are a ready consumer for that content. The only unfortunate part, the only missing part is that the content is not there. Now think about it. If I can put the content there, it's a win-win for both. I have a fabulous headline. I have a good content. I have a ready consumer who will buy that content. I will have the, it's absolutely a marketing success. And that's exactly where clickbaiting is coming. So now marketers are thinking, instead of discarding clickbait altogether or making some kind of a legal thing to ban clickbaiting, if we can do something when it can actually help people, because you have a catchy headline, you will have a good content, and it will help the consumer. Here the main problem is what? The deception comes in because I am not delivering on my promise. The moment I will deliver on my promise, it's all good, right? So that's the end of my presentation on propaganda and clickbaiting, clickbait rather. And if you guys see, as I say, the common thread in today's topic is deception. Some way, everywhere, there is a kind of an element of deception that's there. Yes, so I hope that you have got some kind of a takeaway from this session. Thank you. Over to you, Sachi.
It was quite an interesting presentation, and both Dr. Sunayan and Professor Datta, they have given a lot of food of thought for thought. There are two questions. Actually, they were sent to me privately, and sir, Professor Saxena, should I read it out? And can you see Sunayan or Shubhrajit? There are two questions.
Ma'am, please, if you could read it out, ma'am.
Okay, so the first question is to Sunayan by Avnish Chhabra. Why do we call malinformation a type of fake news? Malinformation is true, but it is just used for wrong purposes. Fake news means news is wrong. So this is his question.
Okay. Unfortunately, the current went, so it has just come back. Okay, good question, very good question, in fact, and I like the way he has actually, picked that particular aspect of my presentation. Anyway, right. No, if you look at the technical side of the story, malinformation is not really fake information. So it doesn't fit into the definition of fake information per se or fake news per se. But the point is, what we are trying to do here is that trying to find out how journalism or the business of information can actually be utilized for doing some harm or actually harming a country or a person or a community. In that situation, malinformation also does some harm. In fact, it is designed, it's crafted with the intent of doing some harm to a person or a country. Okay, that is why we have taken all these terms in the same breath. Not necessarily they all mean the same thing. Yes, your question is very right. If you talk about fake news or fake information per se, we generally mean misinformation and disinformation. But malinformation is a recent entrant to this entity. The reason being, in malinformation as well, the primary intent is to do some harm or to hurt a person or a country or a community or an organization. That is why. But yes, I take your question that it is not a part of fake news in the technical sense of this term. Yes.
Okay. The other question is by the same person, Avnish Chhabra, but the question is to Professor Datta. If one person wants momos and another wants to see movie, you both talk and decide to go for dosa. Isn't it asymmetric? Because one person is getting what he wanted. One person wanted food and he is getting food. So the argument favored one person. It should be asymmetric. You are on mute, Shubhrajit. You have to unmute yourself. 1 minute. Let me ask him to unmute.
Okay, yes, I think I am audible now.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So first thing is fantastic observation. One is looking for food, he is getting food. But yeah, one thing has one person's idea has been completely shot down. I agree. But at the same point of time, the point of why I give you that example is no one is getting what that person wanted. So, but yes, think about not food. Think about that third option is for go to bowling or go to a library for reading a book. The objective is that here in any kind of an, even it's for a movie, the point is that in a symmetric communication, whenever there is a symmetry, we both talk. And the intention, think about it, all the communication, whether it's a theories or a practice, it always depend on the intention that you have in mind. The intention was to negotiate. The intention was an open mind to discuss. And in propaganda, it's very clear that my intention is not for a kind of a clean and clear, kind of an open-ended, kind of a reaching a conclusion. No, I already have my things in mind, set in mind, and I am only trying to manipulate you, trying to pull you in, suck you in what is already decided there. And that's the difference. But again, thank you so much. Nice observation.
There is another question by Shreya Rohatagi, and I think it is to you, Shubhrajit, regarding propaganda and the narrative it is promoting. Don't you think people would only believe it readily if they already have a mind to believe the point being promoted, or they are uninformed about the subject in question? And shouldn't it be the responsibility of media to report all sides of the topic so that the people get informed and there is a reduction in the influence of propaganda? So, if media reports properly instead of presenting opinion statements, propaganda could be greatly reduced.
Yes,
So,
of
perhaps
course,
that,
yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, Ashaji,
Yeah.
any other
This,
question or it ends there?
no, no, this is a long question. So, should I, is that all right? Or should I read the first portion of it?
Okay, so is it
Uh,
a question or observation?
it is an observation, but I think there is a question hidden in it. Don't you think people would only believe it readily if they already have a mind to believe the point being promoted, or they are uninformed about the subject in question?
Hmm. So yes, as we have, as I mentioned that yes, it is of course when the people are predisposed to believe in something, they will believe in that, and that's why this entire critical thinking comes into scene. That whether you would like to have an open mind, you would like to see things from both the perspectives and decide for yourself. So coming back to your observation that whether media should always report impartially. Yes, yes, of course it is. It's kind of a job of media. But then if you see, there can be even an individual, even we as an individual, it's sometimes very difficult because I ask this question to my students often that are you sitting on the planet or in the planet? The question is, of course, on the planet. But when the perception comes, we are actually sitting within our perception. So if I am seeing wearing a yellow glass, I will see the world yellow. If you're wearing a pink, you will see the world pink. So we are actually not 100%. No one of us can say that we are completely free from any kind of a bias. So if we have this bias within ourselves, when we are reporting into media or any other channels, of course, it will get extrapolated, it will get manifold more. But yes, to agree to you, of course, it's like I completely agree that media should be impartial. But if we talk about digital media right now, there are so many of different sources with gatekeeping coming down. Editors are not that powerful anymore, because where there's a lot of citizen journalism, a lot of things actually that's not journalism. They're just putting photographs and images and content and putting out everywhere there is on the internet. And depending on your search queries, because you have asked that whether this politician is good or bad, this politician has God, and you have been fed that politician is God all the time. The opposite is also true. If you see that the Russian meddling in the US election, though it's not, there's a lot of debate there. But if you see that whenever someone was typing this kind of a keyword that Hillary is a witch, and all of these was coming out all the time, just to make one set of people believe that Hillary was not there doing the right thing, or it's not, she will not be good for American people. So yes, now whether there was a meddling, whether there's not a meddling or not, I'm not getting into that, because there were investigations and there were different opinions about that. But think about it. Yes, media should report, but it's easier said than done.
Okay, so there are no more questions in my chat box. Are there any questions to your chat box, Yashashvika?
No, ma'am,
No,
I don't have any
no,
questions.
you
No.
don't have. Okay, so students, are there any more questions? We can take a couple of more questions, I guess. Okay, I don't think so. Over to you, Yashashvika.
Okay. Sir, would you like to say something? Would you like to address the gathering?
No, I mean not as such any important thing, because today was such an enlightening session, and both of our speakers, Sunayan and Shubhrajit, they were par excellent. So and then the questions which were asked and the quality of questions which was there, that was actually notable. So instead, I will ask you, Yashasika, to make the announcement that we decided to make.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you, Dr. Sunayan Bhattacharjee and Mr. Subhrajit Datta for this insightful session. Today we learned about different types of content like fake news, disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and clickbait, and how these content influence our opinion and force us to form perspective. It is very important to look at the message in totality to make sense of it. I would also like to inform all our students that after the culmination of this event, of this course, we will be evaluating you based on the learnings during this course. Post your evaluation, you will be receiving the certificates. Also, we will be organizing a valedictory session, which will let you know, wherein we will award the student who has attended most lecture and has been actively engaged in the event. Like I told you in the previous lecture, asking questions is important and rewarding. I would like to thank Dr. Asha for her constant contribution in the coordination of this course, and Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary and Dr. Amrish Saxena for their guidance. Tomorrow, we will be learning more about how content and context influence our viewpoints. We will discuss about satire, hoax, error in reportings, partisan reporting, and conspiracy theories on social media. The webinar will be conducted by Mr. Pramod Kumar Pandey, Assistant Professor, DMA Media School. Request you to please come prepared with questions, as it is most important to question when learning about media literacy. Thank you.
And also, Yashasika, I mean, the
Yes, sir.
participants need to be told to need to tell their peers that attending the sessions is a must. Obviously, we did not make the attendance mandatory for the reason because we wanted to make this whole activity a voluntary activity. But then attending some session, attending not the other sessions at the whims and fancies is not in good taste. And I would like to tell everybody that we are taking note of all the people, their attendance who are attending a particular session. And those who have negligible attendance, we might decide not to give them the certificate, because we are not here to distribute certificate. We are here to disseminate the information which is vital for all young people. So that is the task that we have taken up, but then we need the same kind of cooperation from the students. So you can tell all your classmates, all your friends, that they need to attend the sessions if they are actually interested in knowing more things on the subjects that we are trying to impart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.